Hi everybody, good afternoon to everyone joining us today for our fourth live stream of the Cyber Business Uplift series. Very exciting to see you all here, so thank you very much for joining us. Today's session, as you can see on the screen in front of you, will be about ransomware. So we're very lucky to have Branko Ninkovic speak with us today. So he'll be joining us a little bit later, and he's from the Dragonfly technologies. So really excited to hear more about that. Before we get started, I would really like to acknowledge our traditional custodians of the land that we're standing or sitting on here today. I myself am sitting on Darug Nation in Blacktown in Western Sydney, and I would really want to acknowledge all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities, as well as elders past, present and future, who have led the way towards reconciliation here in Australia. There's a lot happening across the world at the moment. Every week and every morning we wake up to something new. News from the United States, news from England, news from South America, news here in our very own backyard around the mistreatment and inequalities and inequities shown towards our Indigenous communities and Indigenous people. So I would really sincerely want to acknowledge our traditional custodians of the land on which we're standing on here. Not sure about you, but like I said, I'm on Darug Nation and really want to thank and appreciate the work that the elders and the communities here in the Darug Nation, Darug land, have put towards this journey that we're on. So with that, I would like to move on and open the session. This session, like I said today, is on ransomware. Unsure about yourselves, but for me, I wasn't too sure what ransomware was. Had to do a little bit of researching when this came up as an area of interest that previous attendees of this series had initiated and said. So as I can see, there's a few of you who have joined us previously. With our sessions, we have a feedback form. This feedback form, and through the conversations that we have in these interactive sessions, what we do with that is there is a section and an opportunity to really express your interest for new areas of learnings in regards to the cyber security and the cyber industry. As you can see on your screen, there is a Mentimeter session that we want you to join. So if I can see there's a couple, one or two people who have joined already. If you wouldn't mind jumping onto a smart device or something that you're not using at the moment and going to menti.com, so MENTI.com, and entering the code when you're prompted to, which from what I can see here is 741271. I'll repeat that. That's 741271. So if you insert those numbers into the box, it will ask you one simple question that will guide the conversation for today to really gauge your understanding of what it is that we're talking about today in regards to ransomware. So the question is, how aware are you of the signs of ransomware? So as we know, we can see here now from what I'm seeing on my other screen, some of you are semi-aware, some of you are aware. So there seems to be a bit of a difference and a range of education and awareness of ransomware. If you're not aware, like I wasn't aware, completely fine. These sessions are completely tailored to suit the needs and the information that people need. So what we're going to do is, there's another one. I've just thought, because I saw another one, I'm not sure what to look for. That was pretty much the option that I would have selected. Don't know much about ransomware, don't know what to look for, don't know where to go. As I mentioned, these sessions are tailored to meet all needs. So we'll be seeing a presentation shortly, like I've said, from Branko about ransomware. After that, there'll be a question and answer opportunity and a bit of a discussion. So please, you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A function. That Q&A function, if you select Q&A, you will then be able to enter your questions or your comments for Branko to then answer at the end of his presentation. If you're joining us on YouTube, there are similar functions on our YouTube channel. On the right of your screen, right-hand side of your desktop screen, you will see that there's a comment section. If you enter your comments, we have one of our colleagues from Western Sydney Community Forum, Charlton, who will be relaying those comments to this Zoom session here. So please, start asking any questions. Hopefully, most of your questions will be answered as we go during our presentation with Branko. But if they're not answered, I'm sure he'll be able to direct us into the right direction. So as you know, this series has been an initiative that's been a collaboration and a partnership with New South Wales Treasury and Western Sydney Community Forum, and in particular, the New South Wales Innovation Node, as well as AusCyber. So we have come together to be able to provide these series of sessions for you tailored to what your needs are. So that is the most important thing, that these feedback forms, unlike other feedback forms, unfortunately, we actually look at it as soon as you send that through. We're looking at what you want for the next session. Today is the last one of our 4-week series. However, we are going to be extending that. So I'll give you more information about that shortly. Enough about me. I would like to invite Teresa Pun from the New South Wales Treasury now. Teresa, if you wouldn't mind joining me on screen and giving us a little bit more information as to what it is that this partnership's all about. And I'll just wait for Teresa to join us, hopefully, unless she's walked away. Hi, Teresa. Can you hear us? Wonderful.
Yes.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much, Nadiana. I'm Teresa Pun from New South Wales Treasury. We own the state's cybersecurity industry development strategy and have established the New South Wales Cybersecurity Node to implement it. One of the key objectives of the strategy is to lift cyber capabilities in business. This is my great pleasure to see the node collaborating with Western Sydney Community Forum to produce the Cyber Uplift series. Hats off to the Western Sydney Community Forum team, with my personal heartfelt thanks to Nadiana and Charlton for your dedication and endless effort in bringing this event to life. One purpose of the series is to grow cyber awareness for businesses. Each week, we have a subject matter expert to share some tips with us. It's also important that businesses know who are the New South Wales companies that you can go to in case you need expert advice. So today we have Dragonfly. Dragonfly is a New South Wales company founded in 2005, and in fact, a pioneer of Australia's first two-factor authentication services through mobile SMS tokens. Today, Dragonfly has grown into a trusted cybersecurity advisor to a broad range of organizations, from very small startups to small medium business to enterprise, corporations, and government departments, with a pragmatic approach in working with organizations of all sizes. There are 3 things they always care about: seriously, you, your cybersecurity, and coffee. So we can talk about that a little later after the presentation. And speaking from Dragonfly today is Branko Ninkovic, the founder and executive director. Branko has over 25 years experience specializing in software and cybersecurity practices. And not only that, Branko is currently the Sydney chair of the Australian Information Security Association, ASA. He won ASA's 2019 Branch Chair of the Year award. For those who were with us in Series 1, you will know ASA is the national not-for-profit organization with a membership of over 6,000 members from people who are interested in cybersecurity, including the cyber practitioners. So without further ado, I would like to invite Branko to join us and share with us about ransomware.
Thank you, Teresa. And Nadiana, thank you so much. I'm just waiting for my video to come live. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And look, it's going to be my great pleasure here today to spend the next 20 to 25 minutes or so talking to you about ransomware. And from what we saw in the poll, some of you have some idea of what ransomware is, and some are kind of in the middle of the grey area and how we can do that. So I've got the perfect presentation for you. I think it's something that we're going to have a lot of fun with. If you've got a question, I believe you can do that in the Q&A box below. And you can also towards the end of that, I'll try and answer those questions for you. So I'm just going to pop my screen up for everyone to see this presentation that we're prepared for today. Okay. Right, so just a brief agenda. Obviously, I just want to break this down into two parts for us today. Yes, we're going to talk about ransomware and what that is, and how you can kind of prevent an attack in terms of ransomware. But I also want to paint a picture about why is security important. Why do we even need to bother with this concept of protection and data and defenses and firewalls and antivirus? I'm not going to go too deep into that, but just touch on that a little bit and paint a bit of a picture about in the cyber landscape. What are we seeing specifically locally here in Australia? What kind of threats are we seeing? Where are they coming from? What's the cost to business, especially small to medium businesses like yourselves and like us? We're a business, and we're also in that same boat, traveling along with all those different challenges that we have to face. And then we'll be going into a little bit more around what is it, how does it work, and how do we prevent it. So let's jump right in. So I think I like this image very much, because especially today with COVID, is that why are we doing anything that we do? And we want to say come in because we're open. That's what we want to do. We want to be open. But why is security important? I think security is important, number one, because it's on my slide there, I think from a cyber security perspective, from a attacker perspective, you're a target, and you're a target because you contain and consume and leave a lot of data points. And those data points are very valuable to attackers because they can then on-sell that information. And they do it both in a positive way, where we have good use of technology, and also a negative way where it's used against us to defraud us or to do things for their own financial gain, which is in a sense illegal. It's also very easy to do that. And across the bar here, you'll see this page, which looks like a search page. There's data points. We do our banking online, we do our shopping online. There's credit card data, there's utility data, there's date of birth data, there's our posts on social media, there's our health and well-being that we're posting and searching online, and emails. And all that information is valuable to the attacker. And as individuals, whether we're personally having our own memories on our phones or on our computers, or part of our business, whether it's financial records or important documents, that's all data that hackers and attackers want to kind of steal from us and take and sell that on to what we call the dark web. Now, this slide here is again, it's not a real website, but by that notion, that's how they operate. They operate to kind of through deception, and you'll see that as we go through ransomware. It's one of the key areas is to kind of play on our human instinct of understanding what is real and what is fake. So for the most part, I'm going to quickly touch on the cybersecurity landscape. And when we talk about this, we wouldn't be in this for the last 20 years, we've been talking about numbers, because it's a numbers game. It's like how many attacks are malicious, because we have three types of attacks. Essentially, two of them are not really attacks, but one of them is either a system error has blurted out all our private data and all our company financials onto the internet. It's a system fault. That's one type of error. The other error is human error. We've accidentally CC'd everyone onto an email list, or we've not properly destroyed some records of our own that's kind of fallen into the wrong hands. But 64% out of that kind of mix is actually malicious or through a criminal intent. So the 64% of those attacks are coming through that. Now, when we look at it from a cost perspective, what does that mean? But so there's a number up here, $3 million. So this is all, and the sources are down the bottom here with the links, and we will share these. I'm told we'll share these slides later on, so you can go and read these reports. But if you are a victim of a data breach as an organization, and depending on the size of your business, how big you are, but they're saying the average cost to your organization is $3 million. That's quite a considerable amount of money especially for small SME, medium-sized businesses. And furthermore, I mean, 0.2 with the zero makes it look insignificant, but in a small business, that's like $200,000 of downtime as a result of not being able to do your business online in a digital manner, and that's why we do it. And then we flip to the far left over here, the 200 days. What does that mean? That's basically when companies have been breached and they do a digital forensic and go through all the system logs and try and work out where and how the actual attack happened, they find that it actually happened 200 days ago since they actually discovered the attack in their systems. So it means for 200 days, those hackers have been doing things on your systems, whether it's taking your information and selling it online, or creating more ways to try and navigate and find more ways to access more data or more computers on your network, depending on how big your organization is. So there's some significant numbers around that. But what types of attacks are out there? Now, this is data that's come from the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner. So they publish reports on a quarterly basis, and basically with this concept of the notified data breaches, they are collecting data on organizations that have reported a data breach. And when they ask them, how are you breached? They come up with these different types of categories. Ransomware is the one we're talking about today. That's 6%. So 6% in 6 months. And by the way, of this report, there was 534 breaches that were reported. 6% of that 534 were as a result of ransomware. Malware is malicious software. That was 10%. Phishing, if you're aware of phishing in terms of what that is and how that works, another topic, 36%. And they were using phishing to steal your username and passwords. And there's a few others in the mix there in terms of brute force, which is another topic again, hacking and stolen credentials. So they've just stolen, they don't know how they've gotten hold of their usernames and passwords. But what I want to talk to you just quickly on this one is that at 6% seems low, but in actual fact, to actually make ransomware effective, it needs the 6%, the 10%, and the 36%. And that's what I'll talk to you about and how those things come together to actually make a successful ransomware attack. Globally, this is where we stand globally, and this is stuff that we know. This is stuff that we see in the media. These applications that we use on a global scale. We know Twitter. We stay in hotels. We know Facebook. We know Microsoft. They're all victims. And this is an online visualization tool that's basically gone and said, I'm going to try and visualize for you the size of a data breach. So those bubbles represent how many accounts were compromised in the attack. So if we take Facebook, for example, that bubble there represents 420 million accounts were compromised in that attack. The 3 arrows that I've pointed out on the screen there, Canva is an Australian company. Then they're slightly larger than SME, but they are in Australia. They had 136 million records compromised in 2019. Yahoo, I've pointed that down in the bottom right corner there, 2017, that's about 32 million accounts. Now Yahoo, if you know Yahoo from the days of search engine Yahoo and email Yahoo, they go back to having data breaches from 2013. And for the cyber community that was selling cybersecurity solutions and products, Yahoo was the poster child for you don't want to be a Yahoo. But you can see now how big Yahoo is in compared to what's happened at Facebook, Marriott, and Twitter. It's just tenfold in an increase. And the other one there in the top right is Zoom. And Zoom's come to light as a result of COVID, and we're all using it. And unfortunately for Zoom, they had 500,000 accounts compromised. So you can kind of see that compromises happen, attackers are out there, and they're off to steal your data. Locally, more down to this, what's happening in our news, just of this week or last week, we've had companies reporting ransomware attacks. We have articles written out that the SMEs, the small to medium enterprises, small businesses are going to be the hardest hit by ransomware attacks. So it's important that, sessions like today raise that awareness and better prepare you to prevent yourself from a ransomware attack in that regard. So I guess leads us to what is ransomware? The question is, it's got all these percentages, it's got all these costs, it impacts my business, but what is it? And I think the definition that floats around for ransomware is it basically locks all your files, or it could lock your whole entire computer. And you can only get access back or unlock your computer once you have paid a ransom. So your option is you pay a ransom or you restore from a backup. So that's the only way you're going to get your data back. So I like pictures, and I like to kind of show this in this kind of definition in more of a pictorial fashion. I think this is what we're all used to. We all have computers, laptops, devices, and by the way, it's phones, tablets, all of these apply. And we all have files, essentially, on our systems. Now, it doesn't matter, it could be Windows, it could be Apple, it could be any flavor, but you're going to have important documents, files, movies, photos stored on your computers. So one morning you could be busily drinking coffee and having this screen working away, and all of a sudden this happens. So what is this? This is not shredded paper thrown at the screen. This is all your files effectively, metaphorically shredded, that they are no longer of any use to you. That's the impact that ransomware has. And we're going to deep dive into that. I'm just going to give you a bit of an impact, and then you get this when you restart your computer. Here's the ransom note. So effectively, there was 3 components there that led to a ransomware execution. So what I want you to kind of think about as I continue through this discussion and go through more deep diving, how did we get to this screen, is what if you came into work this morning and all of a sudden you turned on your computer and all the other computers around your office and this is what you got, right? How would that impact your business? I want you to think about what you'd need to do and how would you continue to service your customers and how would you continue to operate. So think of that at the back of your mind as we go through more of a deep dive about how does this work. And I'll try and slow this down a little bit as we just ran through those 3 points there. Like anything, an attack has a number of different ways. Attackers are quite, clever. They do try and invent different ways to get into systems. The one that I'm going to talk to today is the most common one, and that's basically, we all know about these ones. These are these fake emails. And what's more importantly, they're fake emails with attachments. So if we see here, we have someone on the far left who has some, malicious intent. They've either bought some mailing list off the dark web. They've also maybe bought some malware off the dark web, and they've attached it to a fake email and they've sent it to your computer and it's sitting in your inbox. So this is your morning inbox session. You then go and you open your email and you see that you've got a package delivery. I mean, we all get packages, we're all buying online, then I've missed that package. And it's very important to me to kind of understand what it is that I need to download or what information am I looking for. This looks quite legitimate. I believe it is who it is. I'm going to click download information package. Now, what that's actually doing in the background is installing malware onto my computer. And as soon as I've clicked that, you've basically given that malware the green light to go and effectively do that piece of shredding that we showed in the first definition of what is malware. So it will even continue to do that while you can work on your computer for a few more minutes or hours, but it will be happening in the background. And eventually the next time you restart your computer, you'll get that warning sign. But that's not the case of it. There is actually more damage that can be done because we're all networked. Everyone in your organization, in your business, in your team, the malware will spread and start to also shred, for metaphorical terms, the files and documents on your computers, devices, phones, laptops. And those documents, again, movies, financial records, spreadsheets, photos, all those things turn into the basically shredded paper. And the message. This is where we've ended up. What does this message tell us? The interesting thing about this is it's a very logistical operation. Like I said earlier, there's a piece of malware that's bought, there's a bit of spamware that's bought, there's a delivery mechanism through mail. These attackers, might not be just one single person, it could be a whole logistical operation that does that. And even more so, they go to the extent here of actually explaining what they've just done to your computer with this concept of encryption and private keys and so forth. But just think of it as shredded paper and having a password that no longer works on your computer anymore. And you can't just roll it back or do anything like that. You legitimately either have to restore from a backup or follow their instructions. And they have a lot of instructions. You can click on the pay and they'll follow through. But the thing that's very interesting and the thing that gets you is that they put a time limit on it. So you can't think about this. They've given you 71 days or so, or hours or so, sorry, to kind of respond to this threat. So you have to make a decision. Do I have a backup and can I restore? Or do I need to investigate that Bitcoin path? And by the way, if you investigate the Bitcoin path, remember we're dealing with attackers here. We don't know whether or not they're going to actually honor that and give you back a password which can reassemble that shredded paper and restore your files. So that's effectively where that looks like. Now the thing is that these attackers, they work on trust. We saw Australia Post. Here, this is an example of one where it seems to have come from the AFP, but it hasn't. It's a fake email. Or you can actually tell that there's no way you're paying the AFP because that diagram there has a wallet emptying out into a cash register, which I don't think the AFP would approve those types of graphics on their media and their documents. So it's that they work on trust. And down the bottom there, that far before those logos, they've even gone to the point of saying, hey, this is legitimate. We're with the AFP and we're aligned with all the antivirus companies. So it must be legitimate, but it's not. But again, with this kind of thing, you either follow that path and pay a ransom, or you go back and restore from backup, which we'll talk more to. So to recap, some way you get some delivered email onto your system, which has nasty malware on it. That malware was triggered by clicking on the download link or clicking on opening an attachment. It went in the background and encrypted all your files, which is that shredding concept, and then you're presented with a ransom note effectively. And that's why it's called ransomware. So that in a nutshell is what ransomware is. What can I do to prevent it? So we've seen how the attack occurs. What can you do to prevent the attack? Now there's a number of different reasons and ways you can do it, but basically it's going to require you being suspicious or applying a little bit of savviness around the emails that you get. For example, this is a 01. If you use a different accounting package, that's probably not intended for you. This one here, again, these websites with the blogs, they have a full blah, blah, blah about what to look for. I'm not going to go into on this one too specifically, but it looks very legitimate. The issue you have here is that if you were to hover over that link that it says invite INB dash and that number, you actually can see a URL, and your email client should allow you to do that. So you can hover over a link and your email client should pop up that URL and you can go, 00, close, but it's not nearly going to be a bad website. It looks nasty, so I'm not going to click on that link. So they're the things where you're going to have to kind of do some of your own inspection on that and kind of determine whether I should click on that link or not. Is this email fake? Now, Xero is an example here, but Xero have been also very proactive. So if you actually go to their website, they are actually trying to help those small businesses raise awareness around trying to identify what might alert you to this being a fake email. And there's things like, this is a multiple choice, this is a snapshot of one of their questions, look for incorrect spelling, for example. Is it asking for information you already have? So it's asking to confirm your email, but they've sent you an email, I should already have my email. Is it about winning prizes? So the big gotcha is always you've won an iPhone, click here to claim your prize, and then it's really just nasty malware that's been installed on your phone or your computer. And the email address. So this one here, it's from ralphstack.com and not the Xero support email address in the from thing. So this is a good website to go through and maybe yourself or your team and kind of just see what kind of, if you've answered and picked up all of those fake type of emails that you can see out there. But in essence, to wrap that up, in ways that you can kind of prevent the attack is you're basically looking at always install software updates. So if you're on Windows or if you're on Apple, always follow the prompts to install the updates and remain up to date. The malware exploits the software, it exploits your operating system. So if there is a vulnerability in Windows or in your Apple Macintosh, that's how the malware gets to install itself in the first place. So, and these vendors are very good at closing down those vulnerabilities, but then it relies on you to make sure that you've updated and you have an up-to-date computer, phone, laptop, tablet, all those things are up to date. Going back to that earlier one, if you think a link is suspicious, absolutely do not click on it. Always try to look at trying to help identify whether a link is legitimate. Brands publicly available, go to their public website and so forth and have a look at like that. Same with attachments. You don't want to open attachments that look really out of whack. For example, in our business, we have a voicemail system that emails us the voicemail attachment, says you have a voicemail, but we also have a lot of nasty people saying, hey, you've got a voicemail, but we're not even coming from that system. We don't actually use them. And also there's the things like spelling, they're doing all those things incorrectly. And nowadays, if you're using things like Gmail or Microsoft Office 365, you'll get a lot of emails saying your credentials are about to expire or your emails are about to delete it, so please log in. Just note that don't ever click from those email logins. Always go to the browser and go through the proper login page of that service and then do any admin that you've been asked to do, which usually is fake anyway. So usually in our business, we dismiss any of those type of questions. This is the one that is key. It is backup all your devices and backup your devices regularly, because with all that care, you still may get yourself infected with malware. And again, the option of paying through this process is probably the less one that path that you'd like to go by. Now, with all of that, that's all preventative, but if it does happen to you and you feel you need to kind of report this to kind of get some assistance from the government or from the authorities, there is a website and they have a website URL there called Report Cyber, and essentially they will take your details and they'll put you in the system as a case, and they'll come through and try and help identify how you were breached and try and help find the perpetrators of that breach. It's not a good process to go through. It is quite lengthy, so prevention is sometimes better than going down through the reporting path. But all said and done, in security, we kind of, this is a picture that I throw up quite often in presentations, is that just because you have something in place, it doesn't mean it's effective. And I think people in security in our industry rely a lot on controls, like we'll put in antivirus or we'll put in firewalls, but at the end of the day, things like a people-centric approach where the person themselves makes a judgment call, despite of all those controls, they can be the ones that can kind of help the organization prevent and protect themselves. And going back to that personal data side of things as well, so it's protecting yourselves, your photos, your online library of music, all those sorts of things can kind of help you get through that. And possibly that's my wrap up. So I'm now ready to take any questions if anyone would like to ask.
Wonderful. Thank you, Branko, for that. This is a great opportunity for everyone. Just a reminder, you do have your Q&A at the bottom, so feel free to ask any questions. I know I've got a few for you, Branko, but we do have one here in our Q&A that's come up. So we've had an anonymous attendee who's asked, how do I know if the AFP email is real? What if I risk ignoring something and then being in trouble by the government body? So you did say about being cautious. So what are the risks that we take by being so cautious?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that they rely on that a lot, and especially the AFP or the ATO. These scams happen quite regularly. And what we always ask is that if anyone even calls you, whether it's by phone or whatnot, is that you ask for their public phone number and then you go and verify it online and you call back. And you ask for a case number and say, this case has been raised for me, I'm calling back in regards to that case. So that AFP example is, I would, if I felt legitimately that I had done something, that an infringement, AFP don't notify infringements via email. That's the first thing. They only via post. So what you would do if something happened like that, you would go to their afp.gov, I'm not too sure, .gov.au, and actually have their contact page and give them a call and tell them this has happened and I'm not sure and I want to verify. And you obviously might have a reference number or something, and they'll tell you within 2 minutes whether that was fake or not. And that's the same case with the ATO, where they're saying, you're getting these fake, voicemail messages with sheriff demands and so forth. If you just ring the ATO, they'll tell you in 2 minutes that that's a scam. So they don't operate like that, and that's the gotcha part. When they don't operate like that, it's easy for them to say, hey, it's not us because we don't do it that way. And that's, the banks learnt that lesson the hard way, because in the early days, perpetrators, attackers, well, I'm from your bank, just reset your password online here through this email link. And in the early days, no one got that. And so what the banks started to do is they said, well, we're going to stop sending emails that ask for passwords full stop. And so as soon as you cut that out, you go, look, if I'm getting anything that's asking for my password reset in an email or anything like that, no, just bin it, all right? And if you're concerned, find their main line and give that a call and explain them. So if you're a customer, obviously, if you get one that's from, in the bank scenario, it's a Westpac and you're a CBA, easy to shut down. It's not you. So
yeah, definitely with those
they are clever.
I was just going to say, definitely with those clear examples, say, for example, I'm with CBA. If I get an email from NAB, I'm like, no, doesn't sound right. I'm not with NAB, so how does that work? But it's those that are the ones that are from your banking institution, from the AFP, from the ATO, whatever it may be, especially given that everything is online. More and more people may be, I know I am often looking to us, I'm like, hang on, this infringement notice, what is this about? Could I have done something? We've got to be very cautious with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we all use online, like it's very convenient, right? So we all pay with PayPal. We all buy something on Amazon at some point in time. And, they know that and they exploit that. And PayPal statements, when they tell me to click on your statement online, and in an attachment, I say, don't worry, if I want to check my statement out, I'll go online to the official website and check my statement out. So sometimes don't even fall into the trap of convenience. Go back to that official channel of where that information is coming from, rather than coming into your email. So your email really is starting to need to just, and that's what email awareness, into that point about phishing being 30% of those methods that were data breaches, is you're kind of just starting to single out your trusted sources of emails and the questionable ones, and I just know there's no way in hell I'm going to click on any of those links. The other flip side to that is and I mentioned earlier, the vendors and the technology players, they are getting better at trying to help strip these out from actually hitting your inboxes, but they're not foolproof. They still come through. So we're not there yet on that one.
Wonderful. Branko, I know I did say it was the Q&A and the live stream on our YouTube channel and things like that, but we've got another one here, which wasn't through either of those platforms. I'm actually getting text messages now. So people watching and want to ask questions. So I've got a question here, my friend, that's just come through. Question for you, Branko. Are my cloud backups safe from ransomware, or should I have a physical backup?
Yeah, good question.
Really good question.
Yeah, so in theory they are. Where it falls apart is what's known as syncing. So if you're syncing your phone or your computer to the cloud, it could be that if that process, when it's shredding, it starts syncing that shredded file up in the cloud because it's a mirror image, right? And then it can only happen so far. If you've got a cloud storage and it's disconnected from your computer and you're not doing anything with that cloud other than copying files through your browser or something like that, you're not using this syncing mechanism that comes with some systems, then you're fairly safe. But the whole where that all falls apart is as soon as you start doing that mirror copy in real time. Like if you take a photo on your phone, it's instantly available on the cloud, it's instantly available down on your machine. The reverse is true. So it gets shredded on your machine, gets shredded, put up in the cloud, and gets shredded back on your phone. And it's useless. It's no longer available for you to do anything.
Okay, that's what I was going, my question, and you've just answered, was going to be how Apple, I'm not with Apple anymore, but Apple, I know when I had an Apple phone and an Apple laptop, it was, do you want to sync everything onto the cloud immediately? As soon as you take the photo, as soon as you upload a file, it's syncing in the cloud. And I have trust issues. Me and the cloud, we have a love-hate relationship. So I would never do that. But you've raised some concerns in doing that because of that shredding mechanism. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's not prevalent. I think there's probably limitations to getting to cloud data, but in theory, theoretically, if that syncing was in operation and working on your phone and the virus was able to try and replicate and keep the syncing alive, it's actually quite a nasty one because to undo that is virtually impossible. And I'll tie it back a bit. So the attackers only want to go so far, right? If they make it too impossible for you, well, let's just talk about that option of paying. You'll never pay them, right? Because there's no way they can restore your phone files, your cloud files, or your computer files. So they're just happy enough to kind of create enough of I've got this important information, oh gee, I haven't backed it up anywhere, of a nuisance to kind of pay that, right? And that's what they rely on. They're not there to destroy your life. Someone else might be. That's a different type of attack. But they're there just to make it quick, automated, by the way. They're not even monitoring this stuff. They've got stuff just going out, just trawling the internet, sending out spam emails to, lists that they've bought, and it's just, and then they'll have a control computer that says, bing, someone's popped up. Okay, great, they've got 72 hours. I'll just wait for the transfer to happen. If they don't, the key, I don't care what happens. I can either sit on my server over here or I'll ship it back. Now, that's another thing, right? So with that model, they do ship it back. If they don't ship it back, the whole mechanism falls apart. You'll never pay. So there's still risk. It doesn't guarantee if you pay that you're going to get your data returned.
Brilliant. Branko, we've got a few questions coming through and I'm wary of time. Everybody watching, if you do have questions, put them in now. If for whatever reason we don't get around to answering questions here live, we'll get Branko to answer them offline after this session and we'll send it through in the post-event email as well. We might go to Luke Madgie's question or comment rather. Similar advice, so back to one of your previous points, was here similar advice if you get a phone call saying they are from the bank and you need to verify who you are. Refuse to cooperate, bank still ring.
Yeah.
So just a comment there, which is totally true. It does happen.
And this is this is a life of inconvenience right now because I've had situations where it was legitimate and banks do need to verify. But we do ask for that callback and you do callback.
Yeah.
And there was lots of situations there. And I think banks, and especially with credit cards, there's this whole notion of, receiving text messages. It's just another means for them to deliver fake emails or fake messages. And back to my story earlier about, banks not asking you to enter your passwords, but they'll send you a text to say your credit card's being used in Byron Bay, right? And I will go, oh, that looks so fake because I haven't been to Byron Bay. Of course it's been to Byron Bay because someone stole it, right? But at the time, even myself, this is a true story, I'd say, I haven't traveled to Byron Bay, so this guy doesn't know who he's dealing with, cyber professional on this end of the screen, and I've ignored the text, and 2 or 3 more come through because as they're going, the bank is actually alerting me to say, did you buy this? Did you pay this? Because of the activities is out of the bounds of what they consider normal.
Yeah.
And I ignored it, and it wasn't until I received my credit card statement that I realized that someone had made a purchase environment bank.
Wow.
So it's very difficult. So, but to me, that at that point, had that have been an actual fake text, for me, it was far better to wait because whether I did it then or on the date that I've got my statement, the bank still have to go through that process of investigating and finding out what was behind that and actually reimbursing those funds. So we're lucky in that Australian system, it works like that. Yeah. But if it was, if it was once it occurred, you couldn't get that money back, then you have a different problem.
Exactly right. Branko, we've got, like I said, a few questions coming through. We've got one on YouTube, I believe. Charlton, would you mind relaying that YouTube question, please, in the background as the Big Brother voice?
Sure. So thank you for accepting my disembodied voice. So from the YouTube, so one of the questions was ransomware as a service and open source ransomware on GitHub have made ransomware more accessible to any layman. Does it make it more difficult for cybersecurity to keep up with that? And also as a follow-up question as well from the same person, so GitHub is known to have source code for large organizations, including banks, making it nearly impossible to protect against backdoors. How does one guard against this?
Okay, so the first question was interesting. The second one around GitHub, how do you guard against it? Well, yeah, I mean, these code repositories used to be all internal, especially at enterprise, they would host them internally. The prevalence of software as a service and the level around that has over the years dramatically taken off. The notion there is around about it's in anything, whether you're storing in the cloud or whether you're storing files for a corporate is, you've got to apply some level of security, right, to that data, whether it's code or whether it's just, business documents. And when you've got to ask yourself, if I was to take the cloud instance, because that's what GitHub is, it's a cloud storage service. If you take that and I was to store that locally but make it publicly accessible globally, how much security in-house as an organization would I have to invest in to protect that? How much internal staff, security, CISO, someone research, constant threat monitoring, all those levels of security costs would I have to employ to have that sense of security inside my organization versus an organization that's servicing thousands of millions of customers that has purpose-built infrastructure and employees that are specifically skilled at detecting and preventing and securing these environments. So those environments are actually less likely to be compromised than, say, when you store it internally. Now, the concept of backdoors and storing code on Git, I think is slightly detached. So, I mean, anyone that's developing software can develop software with backdoors. That's a software development sort of paradigm. That's the onus on the organization to employ people that are trustworthy in what they do. So the insider threat is always available. But the GitHub, yeah, it's a mix of, like you say, corporates. It's a mix of those that are using it to do ransomware as a service, and mind you, they're just storing it. And if you go and you search Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or those sorts of marketplaces, you can download a whole code base to launch your own sort of like cryptocurrency exchange. So that's what I say. So I said earlier in the very early beginning of the presentation is that technology can be used in lots of good ways, but sometimes it's turned around against us and used in bad ways. So
double-edged sword.
So yeah, double-edged sword. Yeah. So I hope I answered that question.
Branko, I just want to inform you that we had Luke who had raised his hand, I believe. Luke, if you did have a question that you want to verbally ask Branko, please raise your hand again and we'll get to that. While we wait for that, I'll just go back to our Q&A. Now, we've got a question here that says, RDP, current vector to deliver ransomware, especially in current environment. What's your experience in mitigating it? Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, RDP, remote desktop protocol, right? So it's the reason why those, again, it comes down to updating and patching, and also ensuring that in your outside or external infrastructure, you're only opening gateways to services that you actually need. Right. So if RDP, if you need to open into your infrastructure, someone to connect to your organization through RDP, you've got to have, back to that earlier conversation about the controls in place to inspect that traffic perhaps, or use a level of encryption on that RDP platform. and make sure you're using the latest version of RDP, so the software is updated on the client, and also any services that you're running on your infrastructure is also up to date. So compromises always happen through vulnerabilities, and that's where, for whatever reason, the code is not behaving as it should. The attackers have developed a way to exploit that, and that's how they come through. So if you're constantly playing that catch-up game, patching, that's one of the key things that the Australian Defence Force, in terms of their ASCS, they kind of talk about these ASD top 8, and one of them is patching. So if you do things like patching, keep your software up to date, that's going to mitigate almost most of your threats that are coming out there from the outside world.
Wonderful. We probably have time for one or two other questions. Reminder as well, if you did have a question that you want to verbally ask Branko, please raise your hand on your function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll be able to allow that function to work. Last question that I can see here on the Q&A, so for now, is what about websites? What are things to look out for and be suspicious in regards to websites?
Oh, look, that's a tough one. I think it's simple at one end and it gets really complicated towards another end. And the simple end is like if you're using banking websites or utility websites and things like that, it's always looking out for the URL to ensure that you're actually hitting the right URL. And there's actually a whole enterprise out there to sell misspelled URLs to redirect to malicious websites. So if you've mistyped it, so you've got to be very careful. So on that one end, is the site trusted? Is the URL correct? On the other hand, like you said earlier, you don't trust cloud and things like that. People won't trust their bookmarks. So if a bookmark's been altered on their machine, you could click the bookmark, but it could still direct you to a malicious website to do further harm to your computer and so forth, to continue on an exploit. So people will actually type the full URL in. Where it gets really murky and hard on the web is like if you've got sites, there's florists, there's mechanics, there's all sorts of sites, and online social media posts, cat videos, all those sorts of things with links, and sometimes even so much so that they'll shorten them to a 3-digit letter with something, because it's just the way the internet's trying to handle all those different URLs. There's no way of telling. So I guess again, it comes back to that earlier point that if you've got backups, if you visit what's considered a set of websites and social behavior that's not outside of a grey area, then you're probably okay. But as soon as you get into that other area where some of the activity occurs, protection through device updates of software and so forth. And Windows 10 and Apple, they realise that that's the case, and they're definitely invested a lot of money and are definitely very pragmatic about trying to update that. But I get clients that delay the update for months, and then that's a window of opportunity for someone to come in and exploit them, whether they visit a URL or so forth. And antivirus, I mean, it gets a bit of a bang over their head nowadays, but it's still, Windows also has an inbuilt one. But the back to ransomware, what happens is that they can see patterns happening on your machine too. So it'll say, hey, you've got this process working on your machine, it's working really hard, but what we're doing is shredding. And you don't usually shred that much. So it goes, this looks like ransomware. So even to that point, you can kind of have that kind of mechanism in the background helping you to stop you to do that.
Yeah, that's great to know. Really, really handy tip there to know about the activity and the themes that are coming up in your machines. Any
sort of virus solutions, any virus solutions you're looking for. A lot of them now cater for that too.
All right, so Branko, final question, and unfortunately it's going to have to be a big, quick one. We've got here, is it worth mentioning the essential 8? And then the question continues, encouraging people to look them up. Please tell us, do you know what the essential 8 are?
There are 8 criteria, and one of them is patching. I don't know actually all of them off by heart, but the ASD, there's about 40 controls you can do to protect your environment. So they've done a survey about 2 years ago, and this has actually gone global, this ASD top 8, and it's kudos to the Australian team here in Australia that developed that. But basically, there are 8 of those 40. Like if you did all 40, you'll be Fort Knox, you'll be Pentagon grade security.
Yeah.
But they said, look, if you don't worry about those other 32, if you just look at these top 8s that we've identified, and one of the first one is application whitelisting. Now, application whitelisting, people don't even know what that is. It's very hard to understand. In a corporate world, it's very difficult and sometimes impractical. So application whitelisting for number 1. I'm not going to go through 8 because I'll just do my one and the patching one. But the first one is application whitelisting. And what that means is only install and allow programs on your computers for the sole purpose of that function. So if I'm only going to use a browser and nothing else on my computer, that means I don't have Word, I don't have Outlook, and that means that this computer has a registry that says on this computer, it should only ever be running your browser. So that's a whitelist. So it's a list of white acceptable applications to work on your computer. So it's like an application control mechanism. So obviously, if that's the case, if some malware came in, oh, you're not on my list, so you're bad, right? So as soon as you do that, but the problem you have with whitelisting is that all of a sudden, what if I want to install and I need to run something like Slack because my team uses Slack? Well, you've got to go through the IT department, you've got to go through the security department, you've got to get that put onto a whitelist, and you do that. You can do, as a small business, you can do your own version of whitelisting because you just go, well, I'm only going to use these sort of applications that I trust, right? I'm not going to go and download shareware, to that point about GitHub earlier. I'm not going to go and get this guy that says, hey, this is free, like Adobe Reader equivalent. And this is the problem. Yeah, we're trying to save $20 a month. So we look at who is giving us that for free. And usually there's a trade-off, right? Either they're going to do a lot of ads with us, or they're going to install bad stuff on our machines, right? So that's a trade-off. As I say, there's no such thing as a free lunch, and that comes with that. So then there's the patching, which we spoke about. So that's making sure all your software is up to date. And there's a concept called, I don't know which order these are, but I apologize. I can put the resource in the link into that. But hardening. So every machine or server has a concept of what we call hardening. And by hardening, similar to application whitelisting, we're making sure that we're only running the essential services that server needs. So if that server is purely a mail server, we don't make it also a backup server. We don't also make it an email server. Because if it's for example, if it's a web server, the web server is publicly facing on the internet. You don't want to put your backups in there, because as soon as they compromise the web server, they get your backups. So there's this little logistical thing about how you segregate not only the servers and hardening servers, but also where they belong on the network, because you can put these gaps in and firewall and kind of break it up to have a layered approach. So it's all like, if they get through here, they're not going to get through here. And if they get through here, and if they get right to your crown jewels, then something's gone seriously wrong.
I suppose from what you're saying, Branko, two things are coming to mind. Firstly, you're saying that the software that you have is being used solely for that purpose. So I'm a very practical, tangible example kind of person. So I'm thinking I wouldn't call up a history teacher to help me with my optometrist appointment kind of thing. You wouldn't get different things, people and things that are used for one particular.
That's a good analogy, actually, yeah.
I'm an analogy person. Need them, otherwise it doesn't make sense to me. I need something that's not abstract for me to actually comprehend that. And you're talking, and Luke, I'm sorry to have put you in the spotlight and telling you to raise your hand. I realize you've now asked your question in the Q&A function, which is fantastic. But what the question that Luke had asked, that last one being about that Essential 8, that sounds like a whole nother ball game. It sounds like, I'm hinting at Teresa in the background over here, sounds like another live stream, another session on the Essential 8, because it sounds like there's a lot to uncover in that.
Well, that's the thing that you can lead with in that slide that I had, how can you do to prevent yourself? If you do pick out of those 8, and one of there's backups, that's definitely in there as well. Software updates, that's in there as well. So definitely getting that list and identifying what they are. But the key one that's in there, and this is something that I apologize for because we pioneered this back in the day 15 years ago, is the multi-factor authentication, where you get the code to your phone, right? That definitely stops a lot of attackers from just using your username and password that they've used phishing to get to then kind of log in and access your emails or change your email settings to redirect emails.
Yeah, fantastic that you mentioned phishing, because we just did a session on phishing about a week or two ago. So fabulous. It's like you've linked this all together.
There you go. Wonderful.
Tied it all up. Awesome. Thank you, Branko. And thanks everybody for your questions. Thanks, Branko, for your time and for sharing your knowledge and your expertise in ransomware. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate that.
So while Branko's getting off the screen, we're going to ask you to jump back onto menti.com. So pretty much a post question for after that, similar to the one that we asked you at the beginning of the session. While you're doing that, so if you can, like I said, jump onto menti.com, enter the code 741271, exact same code. What you'll be prompted is another question. Pretty much a comparison to what you've gained out of this session, whether you've learned anything, whether you haven't learned a thing from this. Maybe it wasn't useful for you. That would be something that's fantastic in terms of being able to gauge and understand what it is that you were after from this session, and what you want to do after this session. I can see a few of you are already there answering that. So feeling a bit more confident than what you had previously. So that's wonderful. We've gone from not really knowing much about it, but fairly confident, feeling confident. At least you have been given now the tools and resources and a bit more knowledge about how to identify ransomware, as Branko's explained, different types of ransomware, and how to prevent ransomware from occurring, not only in your workplace that you're all from, but also in your personal life, because this is something, as we saw with the AFP and Zero and things like that, it can attack our personal life as well. So thank you very much to all of you for joining us. A quick note to make that this pilot series that we have hosted for the last 4 weeks has been a huge success. And thank you so much for all your ongoing support as attendees and being participants of this session. This is tailored specifically to address your needs and your learnings in cybersecurity. So it's been great engagement over the last month or so, and thank you very much for being a part of this. We will be doing one more session in 2 weeks' time. So these have been weekly sessions. We're reviewing that to see what's best suited for you. So we're going to be doing a session in 2 weeks' time, which will be on the 9th of July, so still on a Thursday afternoon. However, instead of that midday time slot, we're doing that 4 to 5, because we have, as I said, we do read your feedback, and we've got a bit of feedback of the fact that this time slot doesn't seem to suit everybody. So we're going to try and see that 4 to 5 time slot and get previous speakers as well as potentially some new speakers and have a conversation. As opposed to a webinar like this, it'll be a much more interactive session. So please join us for that one. You won't need to register for that. That's been for these 4 sessions. That will be something that you can just click the link and share with your colleagues as well. So the more the merrier. Bring your questions along about anything that we've asked. You can view any of the previous videos that we've hosted as well on our YouTube channel. That's Western Sydney Community Forum's YouTube channel. You can see our logo on the top right of your screen now. So jump onto our YouTube channel, refresh a couple of pointers that you may have not seen, or you just want to get more information about. We have all the resources from the previous weeks as well as this week. So if there is anything, please do reach out to Western Sydney Community Forum, and we're more than happy to help. So thank you very much. And thank you once again to New South Wales Treasury and New South Wales Innovation Node for this partnership. And of course, thank you, Branko, for your wonderful presentation and your ease of answering the questions that were thrown at you left, right, and centre through YouTube, through Zoom, and also through WhatsApp and text messages. So well done, Branko, and thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Have a lovely afternoon. Goodbye.